Hey everybody, it's Tim
And Steve, how are you?
from Phantom History House. It's Phantom History House Calls. Let me try it again. It's Phantom History House Calls, and we have our little intro tonight.
That cracks me up every time I see it.
Great intro.
Well, welcome everybody. And of course, we want to welcome Ryan Phelan here with us on Phantom History House Calls of Phelan Paranormal. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
We're excited to have you here. And of course, the reason we have you here is because you and your team were here this past weekend investigating Phantom History House.
Yes.
You had a team here in every room. You had cameras, everything set up. But before we talk about that, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background and Phelan Paranormal. What are you? How long have you guys been around?
Sure. Basically, my wife, who's normally on here, Tiffany, is usually doing most of these interviews, but she was had a few things going on tonight where unfortunately she couldn't be with us. But Phelan Paranormal, we're in Southwest Florida, and we've been doing investigations now for about 3.5 years. We really try and take everything with a very scientific approach. So our whole idea is that we want to really use all kinds of different scientific material or devices and back up kind of the claims of paranormal in different locations. So for the most part, it's been businesses that we tend to investigate, but we have done some houses and things like that as well.
Yeah, and I like that you have an interesting approach in that you, even though you have experienced things and are a paranormal investigator, you're kind of a skeptic at heart. It always seems like you're out to disprove the paranormal before you accept that it might be the paranormal. Is that a safe assumption?
It's a very safe assessment. Which is so funny because since I was about 6 years old, I've always had kind of an insight where I feel like I've always been able to sense things or detect whether it's an energy anomaly, sometimes even to the point where if I can get a strong enough connection, I actually feel like I will see almost like a picture of the person that's there at the at the home or at the business or whatever it may be, and I get an actual image in my head. However, being fairly analytical and scientific in method, I've really tried to bring in a lot of different devices that actually certify that or verify that. That's the big thing for me is anybody can say, hey, I think I feel this, or hey, I think I see this. But when you can actually use devices that are commonly used by electricians or plumbers or seismologists or whatever it may be that have a true scientific background in that machinery, and you're able to detect those things that you already feel. I joke around and say all the time, I like those just because it kind of helps me realize I'm not crazy.
Right, exactly. And I know that we've had a couple of investigations here at Phantom History House, and we've had psychics and we've had mediums come through, and they've told both of us before that, we think there's something here. We've gotten some names, we've gotten some specifics, and to be clear to everybody watching, when we launched the bed and breakfast, we didn't know if the house was haunted. We knew we wanted to go with a theme that kind of complement haunted house or modern Victorian.
Right. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you came in, and again, we've had a couple other groups here as well. It was interesting getting your take because, like you said, you didn't really know what to expect when you got here.
Yes, that is the funny part is, whereas I'm very scientific in what I like to do, I want to go into every location completely blind. So I don't want to know anything about the house. I don't want to know if there were any names of any entities or whatever that may have been there before. I literally just want to go in a completely blank slate, whereas Tiffany wants to go in knowing absolutely everything about the house, the history, the grass in the yard, the tiles on the roof, you name it, anything she can find, location about the house, land, or whatever for 100 years. If she can go back that far, she will. And so the nice thing about that is if for whatever reason I come in and I start picking up on someone or getting a name, she can verify that, or you guys can verify that. I guess like that actually happened. I didn't realize it until later on, because you guys had a conversation about names that had been picked up, and Christopher was one of them, and I got the name Chris. And you guys have an amazing poker face, I will say, because I didn't find out much later that night that in fact that was a name that was picked up. So and again, as far as I'm concerned, that just adds validity, to everything.
Right, and I know, to your point, I know Tiffany and I had some conversations through text, as well as while she was here away from you, so you couldn't really hear what those details were. Yeah. And I found that was a really interesting method as you came through. And I guess we've shared some videos over the past couple of days of things that we've caught, what we've been told, and one of the things that caught me off guard was while I was walking through the house, while the investigation had started, actually right as it started, I was doing some filming, and I actually caught some members of the team listening to a recording, and they caught an EVP. And I wanted to share that on here and kind of get your take on it. Hopefully we can make this work.
All right. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to show a little bit of that video now.
Yeah.
It's this.
That one, yeah.
Yep.
There's somebody here. Yeah, we know something. We know you're here.
Could you give us a name?
We know you're here.
We know you're.
Okay, so that's amazing. So for people like me that like really don't know a lot about investigating, can you explain what were you holding and what was that device doing?
Sure. It's just for lack of a better, it's a simple video, an audio recording device, either digital or, if you go back in the day, and some people like to actually use the old tape style recorders. But the most interesting thing and why they call it EVP is that's an electronic voice phenomena. And sometimes the crazy part about it is when you listen back, you and I, just like we're having a conversation now, then you listen to that recording and realize that while we were answering each other's questions, someone else was there right along with us answering, sometimes just as loudly as you and I are talking, yet you will not hear it while it's actually taking place. So
like on that recording we just heard, you heard that in real time. You heard it say it, but sometimes it's not until you get home and you're listening later that you hear it.
That is correct. Exactly. Yeah. So as we're going through some of the audio recording that we did while we were there, both Mark and Tiffany have caught, I think last night, I believe they were up to about 15 different EVPs that they had found that took place. And actually it sounds like another person in the room. What's very interesting is there's definitely a younger child, female child that is there, and she's a talker. So we've caught her in several different EVPs already. And what was interesting is while theirs was going on, I actually had an audio recorder, and I was in the room that you're in currently, and I actually picked up on a young girl's voice during their session. I make note of it, but I actually did hear it in real time. But one of the recorders that we use is made by a company called Zoom, and they have where you listen, you kind of listen to the recording as it's actually happening, if that makes sense. So it's real-time audio and editing, and you will actually sometimes hear those EVPs, even though had you not had headphones in, you would not have heard them, if that makes sense.
So I guess my other sort of new person question would be, what would be the percentage of times that you actually like the video we just saw, you get to hear something live and you're like, oh, I just heard that. What would be the percentage of live hearing versus hearing later?
Oh, wow.
Just approximate guess.
I mean, me personally, I would say probably in the neighborhood of 3% of the time you hear it live.
Oh, hardly ever.
If even. Yeah. So hardly ever. That's pretty rare when you actually hear a voice you know,
They were
taking
listening to a
that time.
playback on that video. So they weren't talking live. They were listening to a recording
Correct.
and they heard that
Oh, I
EVP
see. I didn't realize that's what
along
was
with-
happening. So we weren't listening to
Yeah,
that.
no, they were actually, they were in the 97% at that point in time. They were actually listening back to something that they had already, they had asked the questions, they had given it the proper amount of time, and then they got the response back. But while that was going on, like I said, I did hear a younger girl's voice. And actually, you know, and it's verified, I would say, because we've gotten the same voice probably half a dozen times now through what we've been able to listen to, and we still have hours upon hours worth of audio and video to go through before we'll be done, you know. And we try and scrub everything at least a few times just to make sure, you know, that we caught everything. And that's another part of it for us, is we like to have multiple devices going at the same time, so that if we do hear something, you know, like you know, in the room or in the kitchen or the dining room, we always want to have a camera there. So in case, all right, okay, at 8:45 we hear audio. If we didn't, you know, then we can look at a video recorder and actually make sure that there was not someone there. So that's a big part of it. You know, you're going back sometimes a week, 2 weeks later, and listening to audio, and you may or may not remember or know who was in every single room. So we always like to have at least two different pieces of equipment to verify everything.
And you had so much equipment everywhere. I mean, you had live cameras set up, shooting up the stairs. You had one up on the upper landing. You had a couple in a bedroom. So it was amazing to see not only the amount of equipment that you had, but the quality of equipment that you had.
Sure.
It was everywhere. And I'm assuming that, like you said, that takes hours and hours to go through all that footage, because each one captured its own moment.
You know, and what you live and you learn kind of scenario. So as we've adapted and as we've gone on, a lot of the equipment we have now will actually alert us to motion or audio or something out of the ordinary. So a big thing for us now is, you know, maybe we were set up for recording for 15 hours, but that same camera may have 4.5 hours worth of time on it, depending on, you know, how active that room was, how many people were in the room, whatever it may be. So we've tried to go to better equipment that has higher tolerances and allows us to avoid some of that extra just literally staring at an empty room for 3 or 4 hours. So
Right.
yeah.
And we of course have 4 bedrooms upstairs. Each one has its own unique theme. We have 4 fairly large common spaces down here.
Yes.
Where was the most activity caught while you were here last weekend?
That you know so far.
So far.
Upstairs, it definitely seemed to be the Ouija board room, which Tiffany still has not gotten over me, you know, calling an audible at the last minute and us staying in that room instead of the original room we talked about staying in. The picture room where you guys have all the old photographs that apparently Ryan and Teresa that you showed earlier in the video, they had quite a bit of a positive response there. And then downstairs, we had, I would say, a majority of it was right where you are, in your potion room, which was it's just an awesome room. So I can't blame anybody for not wanting to spend time there, and a little in the dining room as well. So those seem to be the two hot spots upstairs, and then the 2 hot spots downstairs now. So, but again, we're still fresh, and a lot of that too was just experience that we had while we were there.
Yeah, and I know that, you know, in the potion room, you were using a little bit of a different way to communicate. I know that Tiffany was using, I think it was the spirit box.
Yes.
Was running, and there was a cat toy that lights up when you touch it.
Yeah.
That was set up on the one of the shelves behind us. And while she was talking to whatever or whoever was in the room with her, the ball would line up, and she also kept getting Tim's name. And we have a short clip of that. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but I just want to kind of show everybody what that looked like. And then we brought Tim out to help us with the experiment.
All right, so we will see how this works.
So What do you need to tell Tim, or what do you need him for? It's going off again when I said Tim. That's weird because... Is he here? Did you just hear it again? Is he here? And that's when the cat ball started going off.
So you can see that was, of course, Tiffany's voice, your wife, who was kind of talking to the spirit box, talking to the cat ball, and then we actually brought you out.
They came and got me, everybody.
Again, I apologize for that. I know.
No, I told you I don't mind at all. I mean, it was very interesting, but I was
in the background. I know, but you were on high demand, so they need to be in there.
It was kind of like, and we had, of course, a discussion after you came out here and sat down and joined us. It kind of calmed down after that. And the belief was kind of like, everybody else is out here. Where's Tim? You know, exactly. So once Tim kind of joined us,
years. Yeah.
Whoever was out here was like, oh, okay, the family's complete now, or whatever they were thinking.
Right, because once I got out here, everything sort of stopped happening, right? Yeah. So I guess this is our theory, everybody, that whatever this what'd you call it?
Spirit entity.
Yeah, wanted me to be a part of the fun, and the poster room was missing me, I suppose, which is lovely, I guess.
Well, if you think about it, and we got what I will say that was very interesting there was a high amount of the evidence that we got was what we would call intelligent response, where you ask a question and you get a response. It's not there's basically intelligent and residual. Residual would be like if someone worked at the factory closed down later on, and for 35 years of his life, he was on that assembly line, and every single day, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., he was there working, doing whatever he did. Now, there is no possible chance that he didn't leave some sort of an energy there of his, of himself. That's kind of the theory in residual. Intelligent being exactly as it sounds. You're asking a question, you're getting a response. You're saying, hey, can you show me a sign that you're here? Can you knock on something and you hear a knock? Or like the lighting up, or the music box that you heard in the background going off. And that was what was really astounding to me, was just how much of an intelligent response that we actually got there. So that was really cool.
And of course, just to remind everybody, Ryan Phelan and Phelan Paranormal were here at Phantom History House this past weekend conducting a paranormal investigation. So that's what we're talking about, is what they experienced and what they have discovered so far, because there's just so much stuff to go through. But I also want to point out, and this is something that Ryan, you and I talked about, was that while there was some activity here and there's some interesting weird things that you experienced, it all seemed very comfortable and welcoming. There's nothing to be afraid of, hopefully.
No, not at all. I mean, there was nothing about it that seemed even remotely threatening. That is one thing I would say. If you got it, if you stayed there, if you were a guest there, there would be no reason to have any concern whatsoever. Everything seemed very happy, very upbeat, very just kind of go with the flow. So I wouldn't. I would have a hard time believing if someone was like, "Oh yeah, there you go."
I went to get the special cat toy that was the one that was reacting to us.
Right. Yeah. And we actually had that. Yeah, we had that sitting on top of a bottle, so there's no way that it could have any type of vibration. No one could touch it or anything like that. And it usually takes some sort of vibration or movement to it in order for it to go off. Otherwise, it just sits there. But yeah, no, going back to it, no, I would say everything there was very positive, very happy, very passive. So, but I would agree, though, from the standpoint earlier where they do expect to see you. When you're dealing with an intelligent entity, they like normalcy just like we do. So they're used to seeing you both there. So now all of a sudden there's 6 or 7 people, maybe 8, that were there asking questions. They didn't know any of us, but they know you. So once you were part of it, I feel like that really kind of helped open it up a little bit more. And okay, yeah, we can talk. Everything is going to be great. So
Yeah, and that was actually a piece of advice I got a while ago from a psychic who said, the whatever's here knows you. They see you as family. Let them know that the people walking around the house are supposed to be here, are welcome to be there.
absolutely.
And that's whether it's paranormal investigators or guests who are just, looking for a place to sleep, overnight here at the B&B. And I also want to make sure that we point out that just because you experienced stuff while you were here doesn't mean that somebody's going to come here and stay and have an experience, whether they're looking for one or not.
Correct.
They're not on call for
that is correct. True. And some of the equipment that we have there is to kind of help charge the air, so that's going to allow put a little extra energy in the air and the atmosphere and make it a little easier for them to talk to us and communicate. So someone's just walking there and they bring in their standard suitcase with clothes and a pillow. Well, then
Right.
their reaction may not be the same for sure.
Yeah, and of course you were here on a mission. You announced yourself whenever the investigation started, and
Yes.
that's something you said to me in the kitchen as well. As the night was kind of getting started, I came out of our apartment here, and I happened to run into you in the kitchen, and you said something to the effect that there's been an energy shift or things have ramped. I think you used the term ramped up. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So once we get all of our equipment set up and we get video cameras and all the different devices that we'll use to help us know that if someone's in the room, whether that be a music box or you name it, EMF detector, we always take a couple minutes where we want to just sit in the space quietly and just kind of listen to the actual natural noises of the building, and from there we've gotten to the point where what we really like to do is just announce who we are, why we're there. Everyone in the room will go around and just give them, at least say their name, talk about the fact that they're probably going to notice some cameras or other devices that maybe have a light on it or whatever, and let them know that everything that's there is to allow us to be able to communicate with them, because they have a much more innate ability to see us or know that we're there than we do to know that they're there. Mm-hmm. And so, if all of a sudden somebody walked into my house and there were a bunch of cameras and all these odd devices that I'd never seen before set up, I'd be a little curious as to what the intent was as well.
Yeah, what the heck are you doing in my space, and what do you want from me?
Exactly.
So definitely appreciate that you did that. And I heard other members throughout the night, because you kind of divided and conquered the house. I mean, you had folks upstairs, you had people downstairs, all out on the back deck, everybody kind of doing their own investigation and approaching it in their own unique way. But one thing that was always in common was, this is who we are and this is what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
Which I definitely appreciated. I don't know how many entities, spirits are here in the house with us, but we've been told that because we do seances and have psychics here and do paranormal investigation, that the energy is right for welcoming different kind of energies into the house. So I'm not asking you to say, oh, you have 15 spirits in your house, but it sounds like we might have multiple, or at least we had multiple the night you were here, but definitely the little girl.
Yes. From what I can gather so far, at least 3. It sounds like I think 4. So an older woman, an older man, and then a younger boy and a younger girl. So it sounds like the dominant voices are definitely the younger girl and the older woman. But I got the name Chris, and I was getting some reaction off of that when I was up in the Ouija board room. Mm-hmm. So, and then I've just, like I said, I've kind of been able to hear some of the EVPs that Mark and some of the other people have caught. But yeah, one big thing that we do with any investigation is we have our own style that we like to use, and we're very, like you said, I'm very scientific about it. I have certain things that I want to cross check and double check, and if I get something, I'm gonna bounce back and see if I can duplicate it, or if we're getting some odd feelings in certain areas. Okay, do we have wiring? Do we have what may be causing it that we can rule out? The reason that it's happening, and the way we do it is much different than some others, and we want everybody to feel it's an open investigation for everybody to try out the things that they do, as long as they're respectful, not only to the property, but to, to everyone else that's there, and the entities that live there and are reacting with us. Then we're pretty happy to let people give things a try. So
yeah, and I definitely want to compliment you and your team. Everybody was great, super friendly, very respectful, willing to answer questions, because I always have a ton of questions when something like this goes on. So everybody was really, really great, and I was so much fun the next morning, because most of the team was able to spend the night that night. The next morning, kind of sharing war stories, what I experienced. And I know Tiffany, for example, had a whole conversation in the middle of the night down here in the potion room, using that cat ball. But I also wanted to talk about more the physical stuff. I guess this is borderline physical. I know you heard some knocking upstairs, and there was also some activity with some doors on the closets. I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Sure. Now, I didn't get a chance to experience the doors and the doors opening, but apparently Mark, in the room that he stayed in, was he in the I believe cemetery room?
He was in the castle room.
Castle room, thank you. And he said during the night that he actually had his closet door open. So again, I wasn't there to experience it, but he's pretty phenomenal with what he catches and everything from that standpoint. In the room that we stayed in, which was the Ouija board room, we definitely heard footsteps a couple times in the night, and then a couple noises from the ensuite as well. So that was, I guess I'll say, during sleeping time. Mark and I did an investigation while we were in the Ouija board room, and with Chris, and we were able to get some intelligent responses based on, if you're here, can you make a noise? And we did get a couple knocks. Mark asked a question. I can't remember what it was, and then we actually felt kind of almost like a push on the mattress. So there was there was that. But then Tiffany, obviously, she has her rule where at night, anytime we're going to stay anywhere, it's okay. The investigation is technically over. We're happy to have conversations with you, but now we're going to go to sleep. So please respect us. We'll respect you.
Right.
Leave me alone during the night.
Right. And we encourage that too. We want people to rest comfortably while they're here.
Absolutely.
Creepy yet comfortable, get creeped out, but then get a good night's sleep. We want that to happen.
Yeah.
A couple more questions for you before we wrap up.
Sure.
It's fascinating to me the ways that different groups do investigations. I know that while it's scientific, it's not an exact science. So you're constantly learning. So I guess one of my overall arcing questions for you, as far as investigations go, is there a piece of technology that speaks to you most, or that you think is the most reliable, or is just simply your favorite to use during these investigations?
There's probably a couple. There's a device called an EDI, which is actually used by people who are seismology. So people looking for disturbances in tectonic plates, or checking for earthquakes or vibration in even vibration in buildings. And so it's a very, very, very scientific machine that measures humidity, temperature changes, barometric pressure, electromagnetic, as well as vibration. And so because of how detailed that machine is, when that machine starts to go off, or you get a signal that there's vibration or a tapping, or a change in electromagnetic field, I guess it just has a little more validity in my mind. The portal that we used, which was very interesting, because normally that's something we get extremely positive results from, and where there we got no results from. Mm-hmm. So we actually wound up using a necrophonic device, which is where we got all of our I guess I'll say our conversation back and forth. And you're really only as good you're only as good as your audio recorders in this field. That's your golden device. Mm-hmm. It's going to pick up everything that your ears maybe didn't hear, and basically logs everything that happened during that entire time. So I put a lot of faith in what you catch there. So the cat balls are amazing. They're a great thing. The videos that we'll be uploading from literally, and we have to thank Tim for this again. So again, sorry, Steve, but you guys were amazing hosts, but we're getting ready for bed. And Tiffany said, "Hey, did you get a chance to have any banana bread?" And I said, "No, I did not." And we went back downstairs and I was like, "Hey, look, the cat ball's going off." So I cut a piece of banana bread and I was eating it. Tiffany started asking questions. And I mean, that whole conversation that took place for about 40 minutes was probably one of the better intelligent response, just give and take from both sides that I've seen in a very long time. And technically that shouldn't have happened. So, it was just a very, we had all decided the energy had changed in the house again. It was very flat. Everybody was going to bed. It had been a great investigation. And then we were just sitting down there and lo and behold, that took place.
So it's the magic of the baked goods once again coming through.
Yes. It's got to be it.
And you guys went through all the brownies too, which I was really happy about.
An amazing host and a great place to stay. I'm telling you that you guys did it well. So
thank you.
Yeah, that was. Even if we weren't there for an investigation, it would just be an awesome place to stay. I mean, really, truthfully, and you guys are fantastic hosts. I realize I'm on your show and I'm probably plugging it, but no, I mean, I would say that no matter what,
Well, but let me ask you about that because we're about to wrap this whole thing up. And by the way, everybody, we're going to have more from this eventually because they have so much things to still go through in their investigative stuff.
Right.
Boy, to get technical.
Yeah, so much evidence.
But this was your first, Ryan, this was your first time coming to Phelan History House, right?
It was. Yes.
So you sort of mentioned about thank you for the compliments about our being good hosts and things, but like, what was your impression of like the place and the vibe and how it felt, and were you comfortable? And I'd love to hear about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went in again fairly blind. I hadn't really seen any photos of the place or anything. Obviously, Tiffany probably knew your thread count on every single pillow and blanket, and this, that, and the other. But really, no, it's very well done. The theme is constant throughout, but it's extremely comfortable. That was the thing. We talked to everyone. Everyone had a great night's sleep. You made it very, very comforting to be there. So. Yeah, like I said, if I was going to be in Tampa and I just needed a place to crash for the night, I'd be going there. So
that's certainly our goal. It's for everybody to be comfortable. That's sort of my part. We talk about the house being creepy yet comfortable. So he's sort of the creepy part with the paranormal conversations, ghost stories. I'm sort of the comfortable part, making sure the towels and the linens and hopefully some baked goods.
But the ambiance and the theme and everything that you guys have created there is just amazing. It really is. I mean, every room has its own theme, whether it's a room that you're staying in or even downstairs. And like I said, that potion room is just amazing. My background, my background in my actual business of kitchen and bath design, I took so many literally notes and things just from that in itself. So,
Awesome.
I promise I'll wind up doing something like that. I'll give you guys all the credit for it. But
we can't get much a better compliment than that. I did want to ask one thing about all the evidence and stuff. I know that your team has been sharing them. Tiffany's been sharing them. If people want to learn more about Phelan Paranormal or see some of these videos, either from this investigation or others that you've done, where can people find you?
You can find us on Facebook under Phelan Paranormal, PHELAN, and we're also on YouTube under the same name. So everything's Phelan Paranormal. So just a nice little play on our last name. So
yeah, and of course we have linked to you on multiple occasions. Last year I had you and Tiffany on an episode of Phantom History where we talked about the Tatum house, which is how we all met for that episode, which was a blast. I learned so much during that. So if you are looking for some podcasts to listen to the Phantom History podcast. I'm working on a new season now. Some more new episodes are coming very, very soon. But make sure you check out the conversation with Ryan and Tiffany about that. Any other questions from you, Tim, before we say goodbye?
No, Ryan, thank you for being here. Your whole team was wonderful. We loved having you here. Really, really interesting, very professional job of investigating. I mean, you guys were really doing it right. All the cameras, all the recorders. I'd never seen it done to that level before, quite honestly. So I was super impressed with your team. I mean, I'm new to all this,
sure,
but And of course, you were wonderful guest here anyway. And
Really
before we go, I want to, in case anybody didn't see at the beginning, I want to play our Phantom History House Calls animated logo one more time. We worked hard on that, everybody.
I love it. It's great. It's a great intro.
All right. Well, thank you. And remember, Phantom History House Calls is going to be live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
We have some great guests scheduled for the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
So pay attention to our Facebook page and our Instagram page.
Or sign up for our newsletter.
Or sign up for our newsletter. We'll let you know who's going to be on. And we're always looking for podcast ideas. And if you're in the Tampa Bay area and need a place to stay, Phantom History House is here waiting for you.
I mean, why stay in a boring hotel when you can stay in this hopefully beautiful, comfortable home and talk about some ghosty stuff?
Absolutely.
There you go.
You were wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Hope to see you again soon.
Sounds wonderful. Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.